C-Suite Network. Once a month, I get to be here in the Women's Coaching and Consulting Council and reintroduce none other than Kathleen Caldwell. And it is such an honor. And I am so delighted to see thriving communities and certainly the history we have with the Women's Coaching and Consulting Council, but us personally, Kathleen. And earlier we were speaking about the very first workshop of women executives in the C-Suite Network. And that's many years ago now. And what tremendous work has been done, and how exciting it is that we have this community drawn together and supporting and seeing success. And that's the key in terms of everything we're doing. It's not about feeling good, although, I mean, if you don't leave here feeling good, I don't know. We need to set up some separate time. And it's not about, you know, getting a whole bunch of tools and ideas thrown at you, although you'll get all kinds of tools and ideas and things that you can be thinking to. It's really about how you're able to assimilate that into something that's meaningful for you to see your success. And that means real results being driven. And now we know, great leaders, of course, that success means something. We're all giving back to our communities. We're all leading in other communities outside of C-Suite. So I'm just super honored. So Kathleen Caldwell, if you haven't spent time with her, you need to. She's a guide, she's a mentor to successful women in business, achieving their greater impact, and the income and thought leadership. Again, those practical pieces of how we're actually seeing success for ourselves and for those we serve. So her clients, of course, are executives and business owners that aspire to scale their careers. And the content every month is just absolutely tremendous in the conversation she creates. And today is absolutely no exception. Our topic today is taking the right risks and making the right choices in the midst of tremendous uncertainty. And this is something that's near and dear to all of us, without a doubt. And in the C-Suite Network, we say we are principle-based, unapologetically values-based. Reach, relevancy, reciprocity, and respect. And I know I'm saying reach first because great people come from great people. And I know, Kathleen, you're delighted to introduce our new speaker, our new leader in the Women's Coaching and Consulting Council, who came to us from another great leader in our community. So Kathleen, over to you.
Oh, Tricia, thank you. A big round of applause for Tricia Ben. Thank you. Thank you, CEO of C-Suite Network. You know, we're all about edification, lifting others up, and we walk the talk here. And so it is such a delight. Thank you for introducing me and lifting me up this morning, as you always do on every day. So thank you so much. You know, being surrounded by community. Dale Carnegie said it so many years ago. Napoleon Hill said it so many years ago. And other powerful leaders have said it's the power of your community and who you're connected to, which is so critical. And isn't it also said by Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich that we are the average of our 5 closest people that we are connected to? So here, look at the abundance in our room here. We're so fortunate. So I'd love to introduce Sonia Jeantet in just a moment, but I'd love to, before we get started, just kind of put a little context and wrap around our program today, which is so timely, Tricia, as you said, because taking the right risks and making the right choices in the midst of uncertainty, it's more important than ever before. And we are so delighted to feature you, Sonia, as esteemed faculty in the C-Suite Network, Women's Coaching and Consulting Council, a leader among leaders. And as the founder of our council and founder of the new C-Suite Network corporate roundtable, we're all about impacting the lives. And I will just boldly say it, there are 8 billion people on the planet right now. And I believe we have an opportunity as coaches, consultants, trusted advisors, mentors, visionary leaders to impact all 8 billion people on the planet. It's a big goal and we can do it. So as we are about to turn the page in the calendar from 2023 to 2024, now more than ever, thinking about the future with optimism and thinking about the future and planning for the future for new ideas, new things that we can implement with optimism, with certainty, and making the right choices and taking the right risks is really, really critical. And so I'd love to welcome to our podium, our international global podium, a wonderful person, Sonia Jeantet, and I so respect and honor Sonia. And I'd like to read a little bit of her bio for you and tell you more about her. Sonia is the founder of SEMA Educational Development. And SEMA in Spanish, I did not know this, Sonia, until you brought this to my attention, but it's Spanish for peak, which really describes what you're all about in coaching and mentoring and development. Sonia has been an international master certified personal and business coach for over 25 years. She does not look this because, you started coaching, I think, Sonia, when you were in high school, of course. Yes. And she primarily works with Fortune 500 companies, executives, Fortune 100 executives. She was also with very, very large corporations herself, and she's coached over 350 senior executives to grow and sustain profitable results. What an extraordinary person we have today. Some of her clients have referred to her, and I love this. This is so you, Sonia, as the C-suite whisperer. She's also the author of The Integrative Leader, a book that was published 2 years ago during the pandemic. And congratulations to you, Sonia, for using that time to create, write, and publish your book. And she's going to be sharing the model about cognitive diversity and what it means to be an integrative leader. So today, Sonia's going to introduce us to whole brain learning and skills and instincts that thrive in the midst of profound and relentless change in the world. So with that, I'd love to welcome to our stage. Please take yourself off mute and let's welcome Sonia Jeantet, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to share the screen. I'll bring up my presentation. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So thank you so much for joining me today. And yes, I'm your C-suite whisperer. And there's two things that I'm going to be sharing with you today. One is the model that I designed around leaders that actually thrive in tremendous uncertainty and make the right calls during those kinds of situations. And then I'm going to also share a questionnaire that I designed 20 years ago for one of my clients that I've actually been using personally for wrapping up a year and going into the new year. So let's get started. I do have a question and I do want it to be interactive. I'm going to be going through the presentation for about 30 minutes. And then there will be a time for questions. And if you want to put the questions in the chat, please do so. But I do have a question do you currently have a way to design, wrap up the old year and the new year with new insights, either personally or with your team? And if you do, please put Y in the chat or put N so that I get a sense of how many of you actually have some kind of a process that you do use and you do engage. Okay. So if you don't, let me just move forward with this, and that is, if you don't have anything, I strongly encourage you to take a look at what I'm going to be sharing with you today, because I know it works. And I tell you that it makes a difference when we're going through the kind of changes that we're experiencing in the world right now, to sort of get a sense to center oneself and then be able to design what it is that you'd like to have unfold in the coming year ahead. If you do have something, think of it as a cafeteria and think of what you put on your tray, pick and choose, and use it to your advantage. Oops. For some reason, oh, there it is. Okay. So this is the Integrative Leader Model, and I'm going to get into a little bit more detail into it in just a second. But basically, it is built around cognitive diversity. It's about being able to use our whole brain. And when I started coaching leaders 25 years ago, I began to notice, like by year 3, that there was a significant difference between leaders that actually, if you will, were able to deal with no matter what circumstances, make lemonade out of lemons. And I began to realize that they were doing something different that other people were not doing. They were taking themselves to a new place. They were thinking differently about the problems and the circumstances they were facing. And so over the course of 20 years, I began to identify what they were looking at. And I also came across a model that helped me sort of take a look a little bit more at the left brain and the right brain. And one of the things that I was looking for was validation, where somebody had actually done a study that could reveal the results I was observing, but that I hadn't had a way to conduct a study. And God bless Accenture Strategy in 2019, they specifically did a survey to identify what percentage of C-suite leaders actually engage cognitive diversity. And I was not surprised by the fact that it was 10%, because even in the model that I was with the leaders I was working with, I was arriving at that kind of an understanding. But it was about, if they did do it for their focus and decisions, these were the kinds of results that they could expect. And this is where it was like, right, it gives you an edge when it comes to revenue growth. It gives you an edge when it comes to profitability. So what's involved with that? Now, in my field around, and probably all of our fields, in about 2010, there was a lot of leaders, thought leaders, they were beginning to write books about the brain and about neuroscience and how you could apply it in business. And so it intrigued me to then go a little further. And I'm going to just share a few slides just sort of to get us all on the same page, if you will. And that is, our brain is constantly making connections every day, all the time. We're multidimensional beings living in a multidimensional reality, but unfortunately, we often don't tune into the multidimensional part of it because the brain is also lazy. It likes to go down the same paths consistently. And so, if you don't have a way to, what I call, do a circuit interrupt, you're going to continue to look at your problems or your situations or your opportunities through the same lens. And when I think of, like, one of the questions that I would see leaders that were those that were like making breakthroughs and changing, the industry or changing their revenue model, they'd always, after whatever was decided or discussed, what else could this mean? What else could this mean? And I realized it's about the questions you ask. And again, God bless David Rock. He was one of those thought leaders that wrote a book called Quiet Leadership, in which he was trying to show how you could probably develop people, your team, without telling them what to do. And it was about arriving at that aha experience. I don't know how many of you go back all the way to when Oprah Winfrey had her show, but I would say that part of her reason was for people always tuning in was that she tried to create shows where you got an aha experience. I didn't know that. Gee, how does that happen? And so part of getting to that aha experience is asking the right question, being able to then step back, zoom out of it, call it the eagle's perch, and then you can start altering some of the synapses. And now you're going to have a new pathway by which you can apply and use it for your business. Once you have arrived at that aha, it's very hard to go back to the old ways because you now understand that there's an advantage, there's something different that's happening as a result of you making this connection. Now, an ambidextrous brain, somebody who's truly, accessing cognitive diversity consistently and applying it, has a couple of other advantages that I actually got to see and I actually now practice. And that is, they were able to take a lot of information, a lot of data, and find the nugget, find the exact piece of gold that they needed to focus on as to, that's what will make the difference. That's what I should do. That's who I should, partner with. That's where I should create my product. And they also were able to, without doing a whole lot of scenario planning, and I'm sure many of you have done that with your clients, recognize what the short-term and long-term implications of certain decisions that they were making. So that's why I get so excited and I want to work with people that are willing to sort of explore and go down the path of cognitive diversity. Now I'm going to share something that I'm sure you all are familiar with the concept, but when I was in technology and I was in there for 15 years, there was a firm that was growing at a phenomenal pace, Intel. And the CEO of that company, Andy Grove, had actually written a book called Only the Paranoid Survive. But it was about the fact that when you were growing at that pace, you had to do it because you were innovating, you were coming up with something different. And he took it to such an extent that it was like he made sure, even though they were developing new chips every 6 months, that they would actually have a new set of teams going through it so that they were not applying the same old approach that they were doing. The other thing that was an interesting point that he raised was that when there is an inflection point time, which basically means that whatever we consider to be the existing and current reality, this is how things always have been or always will be, and it's beginning to, if you will, change the die, end, if you will, a new one is evolving. People that are cognitive diverse actually pick up on the fact that it's beginning to wane before it actually wanes all the way. So they're able to identify what the new part is and be able to leverage that. And so that's the part that I, again, want you to consider. So, again, in the chat, if you want to respond to this, how many of you perceive that right now we're at an inflection point, whether in your industry, in the economy, geopolitically? Because I see quite a few are saying, yep, we are. And it's at this particular point in time where it makes such a difference for us to be able to then say, so what is the emerging trend? Where should, and it's like knowing like where the plane's going to land, where do I need to be in order to take advantage of that? Okay, so now we're back to my model. So when I was designing the model, I wanted it to be easy to adapt and that it focused on what we actually do when we're in business. So I wanted to come up with a question or the start of a question that is what we normally have when we're actually solving a problem. But I wanted it to connect to the return on solving that, on answering that question. There was a model, an assessment that I came across in 2012 that actually did assess a particular person's preference for a particular side of the brain, left brain or right brain. And even in working with them, I found out that less than 5% of people that actually responded to this had a preference in all four parts of the brain as they broke it up. So I thought I'll use that as a foundation for coming up with left brain, right brain kind of questions and orientations. And then I'm going to come up with questions that have to do with when you're being holistic, when you're actually using the entire brain and you're really being an integrative leader. So I'm now going to walk you through an example of each one of these questions. Now, again, it's an example. I want you to think about it as to how you would apply it in your business, how it makes sense for you. And I'm going to tie it to one of the questionnaire for wrapping up the year. So the first one, what, is more of a left brain kind of question. Because if, when I first started coaching, most of the people I was coaching, I would say were in left brain disciplines like technology, finance, engineering, and they're concerned about, well, what are we doing? And what's the return on being able to get it done? How do we make it efficient? And so when I looked at that, I said, okay, what would be a question in my questionnaire that I would put to wrap up the year to arrive at my return on investment? What was your biggest triumph in 2023? Something to think about. The next one's more of a right brain one. And when we think of the right brain one, think of it as more like the creative side, the innovative side, the part that often connects to the heart. It's about being able to, if you will, apply new ideas and look at things in an innovative kind of way. The person that comes to mind for me about this is Steve Jobs, in terms of the kinds of products that he came up with and how he arrived at creating new ways to, if you will, hook us to their product line kind of thing. So the question that I have for this is, so what was the biggest surprise you and your business experienced in 2023? It's something worth taking a look at, because if you may be finding a trend, you may be finding the beginning of a trend, you may be finding something that is now in the process of transforming itself. The next one's more of a left brain kind of question, and it's all about getting it done. How is about how we're going to implement something. And the return on that implementation matters. What kind of a process you apply, how you come up with your plans for execution matters. And I always tell people that we get hired into the business world right out of school because we have some basic foundational information, but we grow our career by our ability to build that reputation of getting it done and getting it done well. So the question that I have for that is, what are you most happy about completing in 2023? Because if you completed it, you followed some kind of a methodology, some kind of an approach that you can now come to the conclusion of never do that way again, or I should try to do that more consistently and maybe tweak it this and that kind of way. The next one's the right brain kind of question, and it's about whom. Whom do we need to be involved with in order to be able to have a successful year, a successful month, a successful plan? And it's, are you working more this year with your clients? Are you working more with your team? Are you working more with your colleagues? Because this is so critical for us being able to make progress. I don't know of anybody who is in an independent entrepreneur who didn't have to leverage this part of the interpersonal interaction quite effectively in order to be successful in their business. So the question that I had, and it's one of a few questions that I have in that questionnaire, is what important relationship improved the most in 2023? Again, you'll get an insight into, wow, that's the relationship I expected to improve the most, or that was a surprise, I didn't know that came out of the blue. I have another question in there about who were the 3 most influential people for you in 2023. And it's about being able to recognize, am I mining new areas? Am I finding that there's people that I'm continuously building into a new dynamic? All of that becomes important. Now we're going to get to the nuggets, where it's actually where people are really being integrated, where they're really taking and answering the questions that create and make the difference. And I decided to use the question where, because it's about situational awareness. Where am I in the business? What's happening in my business model? When I think of the pandemic and what we went through, obviously all of us had to sit there and figure out how we were going to be doing business. But I noticed that there were certain companies and certain specific businesses that made certain key changes that are still being used today. There's a restaurant near my house that makes amazing shish kebab. I love shish kebab. And they actually were always a dine-in. And they realized that they had to go to a takeout model. And in going to the takeout model, it turned out to be so successful that today, 2023, it is 50% of their business and profitability. And it has actually changed in terms of how they are able to take reservations and stuff like that, because they often don't have a wait. But that does not affect their ability to be successful. The question from where is, what was the smartest decision you made in 2023? Because if you were able to be paying attention to where things were, you made a call, and that call was probably the right one. And then the last one is when. This is about being able, I really think about this connecting the dots. The example that I used to introduce this chapter in my book was when you're watching a professional baseball game and you're watching one of those players out there on the mound, and you realize that they were successful in making the call of when to steal that base, of when to make that run to get all the way to the home base. And it is about adapting. It is about shifting. It is about being able to recognize now these pieces go together. I used to have a group that of women, we call ourselves Women of Substance, and we would actually have dinners together. And we would then make dinners with each other and we would partner up. And one of them used to say to me, okay, Sonia, so what recipe are we going to use? And I'd bring out the recipe and she'd say, okay, these are potential ingredients. Let's figure out how we want to apply them. And it is about that. So the question that I had for when was, what was the biggest risk you took in 2023? Because there is no way of us being able to go into new areas, expand into new opportunities without recognizing that there's some risk involved. Cognitive diverse leaders are able to go through that process and minimize the negative outcomes of the risks that they take, because they're able to identify where there's a better fit. Tricia, you were the perfect example about having that conversation with the people from Africa And they're approaching you thinking, oh, you just want to sell something. You're like, no, I want to align. I want to be able to make this work for everybody. It's a win-win kind of thing. So this is sort of the baseline of what I created. And so the key that I want to leave with you today regarding the model is that I want you to recognize that you can make changes in your model mid-year, throughout the end of the year, and recognize which is the place where you need to be putting in more of your resources or your time to get the right return for the right purpose that you have. Now, this is the questionnaire that I've been alluding to, and I'll just give you a little bit of a backstory to the questionnaire. I did, if you will, create it 20 years ago, but it wasn't because I was so smart and inspired. It was because I had a client who was very savvy. And in November of that year, she called me up. She goes, so you have a questionnaire for wrapping up the year, starting up a new one. And I said, no, I don't. And she just said to me, oops. And I thought, oops, I got challenged by my client. I rise to the challenge. So I created this questionnaire with the intent of being able to normally ask yourself the questions you wouldn't ask yourself in a traditional business plan kind of approach, and see if it actually created some new insights for them. I shared it with her, I shared it with 2 clients, and then I shared it with my family because I'm a firm believer you got to eat your own cooking. And I asked my family, would you guys mind if on the 31st we actually fill this out? And they're like, okay, whatever, let's do this. 20 years later, we fill it out. It's a ritual. And we actually fill out the first one and, then read it to each other, read our answers to each other. And then we design the new one. And it's almost like having a support group, an insightful group, a group that, if you will, elevates you and pushes you along. And there's many stories I could share about things that we have developed and achieved as a result of this. I do want to give you a little bit of a perspective in terms of this questionnaire when you download it and you choose to use it and you choose to share it. There may be questions that you don't have an answer for. And that may be something for you to get a little bit of an insight. Oh, I don't normally ask myself that. I don't normally go there. I remember when we first started doing this, and I put in there what compliment would you like to have received in 2023? Many people who are very don't think of themselves first, didn't have an answer. And I said, well, something to think about. It's an awareness piece. When it comes to designing the new year, the one thing I will say is there may be some questions that in answering it, you may find yourself year after year potentially putting the same answer or very similar answer into that bucket. And the thing I want you to think about is this, if you will, I'm planting a seed every year and potentially I'm just going to finally, hit the ground running? Or is this something that was a nice to have and maybe I don't need to do this anymore? I'll give you an example. It's like, what would you most like to change about yourself in 2024? And most of us have the typical, I'd like to lose the weight, I'd like to make more money, whatever it is. So something to think about. So in a nutshell, today I was able to share with you a cognitive diverse model that I came up with, that I use. It's a framework that I have honed in on over the last 20 years. It's finally been published in the last 2 years. I encourage you to use it as you'd like and work with it in whichever way you can. The Transitions Questionnaire is my gift to you. Please use it. Please share it. Please tailor it. Make it your own. But I can tell you that it will make a big difference in terms of creating focus and creating intention for yourself. This is the link for you to be able to download the Transitions Questionnaire. You can also go to my site, steamedmyed.com. And there is a banner that we have that you will be able to download the questionnaire. So feel free to do that. No problems with that. And in terms of contacting me, if you should have any questions, we're going to open it up now for any questions and answers. But if you want to contact me in the future, here's my email address and here's my phone number. So now I'm going to stop the share and have us all be able to sort of interact. And are there any questions? Are there any questions in the chat? Anything that people want to be able to bring up? Kathleen, do you want to facilitate that?
I would love to, Sonia. First of all, thank you. I leaning in the entire time to everything that you said, and so I'm going to put in the chat here your site that people can go to, because I don't know if everybody got the assessment link, but we'll be able to put this in. So yeah. So questions that we have a few remaining moments, because
Okay.
in our council, we get into it. We get in and we get out. Everybody's time is so important. And so Sonia, so appreciate you bringing some really important topics with these questions. But the thing that I really loved is that you challenged us to think deep, but also think broadly. And in a world where, we have people's attention for 3 to 7 seconds, on social or wherever, I really appreciate that. And so my question for you is, and everybody else, think of your best questions here, your most pressing leaning in questions. Sonia, how is it that you do this with also teams and with groups and associations? Notice I'm doing a little seeding here for your 2024 future. Yeah. How would you run a workshop or, a leadership board of directors kind of inquiry like this?
So one of the things that I have done this actually, I did it with Johnson & Johnson. I did it with a couple of different companies. Sometimes we start with actually having people do take an assessment that helps us identify what their preferences are, so that when then we do put them into groups, we either align them by what their strengths are, or give them an opportunity to experience like being a stranger in a strange land, like when you're visiting, like if you have more of the left brain people with the right brain,
Yes,
with the right
yes.
brain challenge, how is it that you're able to go with that? So there's the purpose of the meeting can have several different approaches. One is it just for all of us to get a sense and a baseline of where we normally go, and that is why traditionally the questions that get answered, the places that get funded, fall into this area or that area. And then in some cases it's like, no, there was one of the CEOs that I work with. He was in a very interesting dilemma. He had joined the firm for about a year, and he was brought in by the angel investors. And their request was, we want out. We want out in 2 years. And so your job is to make sure that you build a strong enough baseline of the business so either you guys can be acquired, or you can go public. And so when I met with him, I said, okay, got it. So it's with him that I actually created the dynamics of looking at situational awareness. So we basically had our first 2 meetings about situational awareness and return on investment and return on profitability. Return on investment and innovation. And so then we took his whole team. And when we were doing that, it was in 2007, 2008 when we were having the financial meltdown. And quite a few of their clients fell in the financial sector. And we actually had to walk them through the fact that if it all went down, what do you still have? And how will we go about creating something? Within 2 years, they were able to be acquired by a international firm. And they were so successful as a team that they were all able to, they paid amazing retention bonuses to the leadership team, and they were able to then continue to grow and develop. There's more to that story, but just to give you an example, Susan Younger had raised her hand, and so I want to make sure that we give Susan the time.
And it's really related to exactly what Kathleen asked. If you're working with a group, do you have everybody do it, and then do you process all their answers to take back to the group, or does the answers go to only the management and putting together a game plan for the 2024? How is this implemented beyond just asking the questions?
So thank you so much, Susan, for the question. And I want to share a couple of things that I think are relevant to what you're bringing up. I'm a firm believer that you need to share with as many people as much information as possible, because I'll go back to the book that was written about Only the Paranoid Survive. In strategic inflection point moments, what he was discovering, and part of the reason why he wanted to make sure that he had a different set of teams doing different things, was that typically at the very, very top, we almost insulate ourselves. We keep going down the same pathways, we come to the same conclusions. And it's more the people in the middle management that are picking up what's happening in the marketplace and why certain things are shifting. And if they're not included, if you don't have a good, interaction with them, then you're going to miss the boat and you're going to lose talent because they will go to where their management or their leadership recognizes there's a new trend or there's a new opportunity and they want to take advantage of it, or that they're going to avoid certain kinds of issues.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, no. I can see that you also work with your clients in a variety of ways, and you realize how important that is. I am now working with a couple of really high potentials at a company. I worked with this engineering firm for like 10 years, and they were acquired by a global firm about 3 years ago. And so now there's the whole, what's the next level of leadership? What do we need to do? And I shared this presentation with one of those new star players, and literally he looked at me and goes, okay, so here's what he immediately went into: questions he doesn't ask himself but he needs to be asking about, or potentially what kinds of people he needs to bring to his team, what kind of thinking he needs to bring to his team. So it for anybody who's in that place, they're immediately gonna, if you will, go to it. Anything else, Susan?
A follow-up to that is, when you're working with a client, do you end up creating some of these questions based on what they have told you they already have as a game plan? Or is this something you're really trying to challenge them to think about things in a new way? Because I could see it being used both ways, as a challenge and as a integration.
So I have two approaches. And here's where I go with it. I firmly believe in not leading the witness. So my thought is, I want to be able to create an environment in which they become aware of where they naturally go to. Where, I want to say, okay, so what are the normal, here in Southern California, we have many freeways. And I always say to people, it's like, if you go down the 405, you can only see the things that are off the 405. So you want to be able to think of which other freeways you want to be able to go to. So part of it will be, is that, are we here to gain some brand new awareness and, if you will, carve out a new path for ourselves? Or are we here, like in the case with this particular CEO, I have a very specific challenge. And I'm going to need to, if you will, insert certain specific topics, because unless I have everybody else buy-in, and we've all been able to look at this, it's not going to happen. So it depends on the circumstance. I tailor it.
So,
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Sonia, I'm putting right in the chat here your site and your generous gift of this assessment. Thank you. This is marvelous. And yes, and Sonia, what's the best place, and how do people connect with you? And then we're going to have a little short completion time with you as well. That's a little special surprise.
So people can go to my site, and the way we designed the site was, I can recognize that if people haven't done business with me before, they might want to, if you will, have like a taste and get a sense of things. So we do have like what we call a targeted and mini coaching and consulting opportunity, where people can sign up for 3 sessions, and then they'll take them straight to my Calendly site so that they can set up an appointment. And I record every one of those sessions so that they have the opportunity to, if you will, not only experience that, but then be able to then play it back. Sometimes I encourage them to play it back 2 or 3 times before they set up a second appointment, so that they get their maximum value. And then if after that they want to contract with me and have me work with it, then I deduct what they paid for those 3 sessions, and I apply it to the proposal that I'm going to make for them. So there's that. They can send me an email. They can reach out directly to me on the phone that I put on. There's my cell phone. I do answer my cell phone. And I am always looking forward to, learning from, new people that might be able to benefit from the knowledge that I have and the experience that I have.
Very, very nice. So I would love to, we'll complete our time, and, we're leaning in thinking, oh my gosh, we want more from you.
Mm.
And this is great. And so we would love to give a gift back to you, Sonia. So I have a little request of everyone that we just take a quick moment and maybe just jot it down wherever you'd like. And let's give Sonia a gift back to her in appreciation for you, Sonia, and for you presenting such great information, such great knowledge, sharing your passion, obviously, with us. Curious for each of you, if you'd like to share, what's your biggest takeaway from our time with Sonia Jeantet today? And also your biggest appreciation of her, appreciation of how she presents, what she presented, her passion, her commitment, whatever you noticed about Sonia, because I think we don't notice the things about us that are the most glowing and most powerful.
It's true.
So, Sonia, we want to give that visibility and feedback to you. So for each of us, really 2 questions. What's your biggest takeaway from our time today in the C-Suite Network Women's Coaching and Consulting Council, as well as your appreciation, of course, for Sonia and what she presented? So would love to stop our sharing. And even if you just joined a minute ago, you know, you certainly got the essence of this great, great time with Sonia today. So I'm curious, who would like to jump in?
I'll go ahead and start since I was late to the party, but Sonia, I have just adored you for some time. And when you speak, there's just a sense of genuine warmth and calmness, and I feel taken care of. So.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Great, great. And Sheila, thank you for being here and participating. I'm going to put in, you might go into the chat. I have a favor to ask of you, Sheila, because Trisha Ben's feedback to Sonia is in the chat, and I think it'd be lovely for you to give voice to that if you would like to. So I'm going to copy that in the chat, and so that you can be sure to see that. And if you would like to share it after Carol, that'd be lovely, or when you're ready. Thank you. Carol, please jump in.
I appreciate, Sonia, your generosity of spirit and your ability to synthesize so many things in a very special way. And I can hardly wait to take your questionnaire and to share it. Oh, you suggested that we customize it for ourselves, but I want to know really what you meant about that, because I'd be happy to share it with your you know, Seema at the top and Sonia at the bottom and all of that. But oh my goodness, I'd love to share.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And when I said customize it, there may be a question that's really like a burning question for you in your situation or in your family. And you know, so there is something that matters for you. You want that insight. So that's what I mean. Add something. So it's like you can add, delete, change, but make it meaningful for yourself. That's the key.
Thank you.
That's the key.
Just such a lovely gift.
Oh, thank you.
Sheila, did you want to jump in and share Trisha's feedback?
Yeah.
You know, there's something about visually putting in the chat, and we so love that, and then hearing, because I can tell, Sonia, you're utilizing always your right and left brain. We know that, don't we?
Absolutely. All right. So Sonia, welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you for sharing your experience and inspiration with us today. The reflection in terms of where we are with our businesses and our personal development, cognitive diversity in our approaches is so powerful.
Oh, thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Great. And we have great feedback for you in the chat. Sonia, I know you're going to save this chat, and we'll be sure to send it to you. Yeah, if anyone would like to jump in and unmute, feel free. We want to turn over the podium. Susan, you've been leaning in. We've noticed you leaning in.
Sonia, I just love how simplistically you put those questions out there. They're not these complicated mumble jumbles. They're very succinct And because you are directing them to the left and the right brain, you are really creating that interaction on both sides of the brain for all kinds of people. And your presentation is just gorgeous, which speaks to you and just what a beautiful mind you have as you've put this together. And I so appreciate you and everything you've brought to this. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. I think it's working with executives that don't have a lot of time
Right. Exactly.
causes you to really focus.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
It's like,
Yes.
what do
Yes.
I really need to share? What do they really need to know?
Thank you, Susan Younger. Susan Wenzel would love to give you the podium as well. We've seen you lean in too. Yeah. It will be completing here in just a moment, but good golly, isn't this a rich way to give back to
That's a
our
great gift for
presenter?
me. An
Sonia's
unexpected gift.
amazing. Sonia's just amazing and she's lovely and she keeps it so real and she has a little bit of a cheeky side to her, which I love. So I don't know. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of coaches over the years and sometimes people get caught up in the speak. And Sonia's not a speak person. She's just real and you can really relate to her. And she's so lovely to work with. And the questionnaire, I think I'm absolutely going to do it. I love the questions. I was already thinking and trying to figure out how I could turn some of those answers into a tattoo. Sonia knows what that means. So thank you, Sonia. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Great.
And I appreciate you, obviously.
Thank you. Well, as we complete our time, thank you for putting everything that you've put in the chat, friends, and your generous sharing. Finally, thank you again, Sonia. We loved every moment of our time together with you. And, we're leaning in, thinking and looking forward to 2024 with more optimism, more positivity, more options. And that's really what we know about you.
That's the whole reason for it. It's a new year, and I think that we're living in that transition time, and I think that we all can contribute and create what we really want to have in 2024.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So feel free, reach out also to Sonia on LinkedIn, on her site. And so with that, we'll complete our time with you and complete our December, my goodness, the 7th C-Suite Network Women's Coaching and Consulting Council. What a joy to be with you today. Thank you again. Help us spread the word. We want to serve and be with more of you, people like you that know you, like you, and trust you. And so let's help spread the word. So with that, bye for now. Thank you again, Sonia. What a joy to be with you. Thank you, folks. Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.